Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Kathy Guidry, and I'd like to welcome you to the Dibble Institute's second Wednesday webinar. Today's webinar is called Meet Them Where They Are, Building Protective Factors for the Future. And first, I really want to credit my colleague, Dixie Zitlow, who is our outreach educator. She is our outreach director. She is really the brain behind this webinar, but she is also one of our main trainers for Dibble Institute. And she actually couldn't be here today because she is in Florida. She is doing a training for an organization down there. But she is actually the person that brought together 3 amazing women today to talk to us about their organizations and how they build protective factors within their organizations. The 3 presenters today are Emily Spruill, Rita Johnson, and Mina Koplin. I want to give you just a little information, some housekeeping tips, which we always go through at the very beginning of the webinar. First of all, if something happens that you cannot access audio through your computer, you can always use this link and dial in through your phone using the access code. All attendees are going to be muted, but you will have lots of ways to participate today. This is going to be a very exciting webinar. We're going to do some things today that we have never done before. First of all, if you have questions about content of the webinar, please hold them till the end of the webinar. Maybe write them down on a scratch sheet of paper beside you, and then you can type them in the question box during the Q&A time. Since I'm here today by myself, that will help me be able to differentiate those questions from any technical assistance questions that I might get. I'm also going to ask you an open-ended question near the end of the webinar, and I'm going to ask you all to type your response so that I can say them out loud to everyone. And we'll also have a poll question. And as always, we're going to record this webinar, and then it'll be archived on our website under webinars, and I hope to have that up by Friday afternoon, more than likely Monday morning. So check back then for it. And as always, we like to tell you about our founders, Charlie Dibble and his wife Helen. Charlie was an aeronautical engineer by trade, and like most engineers, he liked solutions. And some 30 years ago, he saw how young people's lives and their relationships were being affected by those of their parents. And some of the ways that they were being affected were not in positive ways. So he started asking lead experts in the field of relationship education, what are you doing to convey to young people the need for creating stable families? Charlie did not get the answers he was looking for, and he decided it was necessary to take research and supply materials to young people that would enhance their romantic relationships. So here we are, the Dibble Institute, more than 30 years later, helping young people have access to relationship education materials. The Dibble Institute is a national, independent, nonprofit, research-based organization. Now, we don't do direct services, so it's with the help of all of you, every one of your organizations, that we have been able to reach more than 1.5 million young people in the last 10 years. Let's talk a little bit about the core values of the Dibble Institute. First and foremost, we believe in research. We go where the research leads us, no matter what trends say. We keep our materials up to date with current statistics and research. That is why we encourage you, when you have an old edition of something that we publish, we encourage you to look at the new edition so that you see what the new research says. Secondly, we believe in stable, healthy families. Research shows that children do best in stable, healthy families and do best when raised by their own 2 parents. Now, we understand that not all families have 2 parents. We also do understand that there are many single parents out there having great outcomes with their children. But we do know that high conflict, abusive situations are not good for children, and those relationships are better being apart. And finally, the Dibble Institute believes that all people deserve to be treated with respect, and all relationships can be improved with relationship skills. All relationships get better, stronger, and healthier with relationship education. Our materials are suitable for all kinds of relationships. The first thing I want to do, since we're talking about protective factors, I found the definition of protective factors from the CDC website, and this was written in 2019. Protective factors are individual or environmental characteristics, conditions, or behaviors that reduce the effects of stressful life events. These factors also increase an individual's ability to avoid risk or hazards and promote social and emotional competence to thrive in all aspects of life, now and in the future. I've got a poll question I'd like for you to answer, and what you would do is just take your mouse, and I'm going to ask you, I'm going to launch here in a couple minutes, and I'm going to ask you to take your mouse and answer the question there on the poll. Which of the following is an example of a protective factor for youth? Close bond with caring adults, academic success and achievement, community connectedness, positive peer relationships, or all of the above? Okay, let's try this here. We're going to share the results. And it looks like 90% of you said all of the above. And yes, and we'll hear what these three amazing people have to say here today about their organizations and the protective factors that they build in their youth. And we'll see that they do talk about a lot of all four of these, among other things, of the protective factors that they use, but definitely all of the above. Thank you for answering that. So first, we're going to talk with and have Emily Spruill talk and give her little introduction, tell about the program that she works in and about her organization, about funding, and about the programs that she uses. Emily?
Hey, thanks, Kathy. So to begin with, just a little bit about myself. I live in Georgia. I graduated from Kennesaw State University with a Bachelor in Psychology. And I'm currently earning my master's there in public administration. I work for a nonprofit called Advocates for Bartow's Children, located in North Georgia. I've been with them for about a little over 2 years. It's actually a really great story. I began as a potential volunteer for them and became staff. And then I started working with the independent living program and became the independent living coordinator. And I just recently transitioned into the human services professional role here. So that's been really exciting. My goal one day is to be CEO of a nonprofit after I complete my master's program. So that's just a little bit about myself. Kathy, you can go to the next slide.
Okay.
Okay, so a little bit about the nonprofit that I work for. Again, it's located in North Georgia. It's called Advocates for Bartow's Children. Our main goal is to help prevent child abuse and neglect through a bunch of different ways. We have about at least 8 different programs within the nonprofit. I work for our children's shelter, the Flying Branch Children's Shelter, and that's actually how the nonprofit first began in 1985. We housed at-risk youth in the community who were homeless, ran away, or had nowhere to go. We have 8 other programs that contribute to the community to help families in need. And just basically look after youth in DFACS custody. So at the shelter, we have 2 programs. One is we take in kids in DFACS custody. And another is through our RHY program. That is our Runaway Homeless Youth Program, where we take in kids that are homeless or they've run away. All the programs help at-risk populations in the community. Our vision is that all children are respected and loved, happy and thriving. And again, we aim to eliminate child abuse and neglect in the community. Kathy, you can go to the next slide. Okay. So how we got involved with the Dibble Institute is that we used two of their curriculums at the shelter. So at the shelter, we have an independent living program. Some of you guys might be familiar with this. It's known, like in human services and in DFACS, there is an ILP program where kids in DFACS custody have like an independent living specialist. You kind of guide them as they're in DFACS custody, hoping to prepare them for when they exit care, making sure they have the correct life skills to be able to take care of themselves. A few years ago, one of our staff members realized that there was a need to have an independent living program on site for the shelter. So not only participating in it through DFACS and with their case managers and their ILSs, but actually doing stuff every day at the shelter. So we created an independent living program. So we have an independent living coordinator, and she works with the kids every day. She meets with them about twice a week for individual support, and then once a week for ILP group. We also have ILP workshops we attend once a month. The kids volunteer at least once a month. They attend a healthy relationships or a sex education course that the ILC puts together for the kids through Love Notes. And they just do a lot of other stuff, kind of prepare them for college, careers, how to manage their money, how to manage their home, grocery shop, coping skills, healthy relationships, healthy boundaries, mental health, all that stuff. And so this is when the Dibble Institute curriculum really comes into play for this program for the shelter. The 2 that we use are Love Notes and Mind Matters. We really kind of go through them both, and we kind of mix and match, and we'll take different slides from different PowerPoints to basically just make sure we're meeting the specific needs of our youth in our care. And this just really helps us prep them for when they exit care, especially with healthy boundaries, having relationships with trusted adults, and giving them the skills they need to look out for themselves. One thing that our independent living coordinator, she's constantly saying to our kids is that, you know, at the end of the day, no one's going to be able to look out for you better than you can yourself. So yeah, that's about it for that program. Kathy, you can go to the next slide. Okay, funding source, the ILP program at the shelter. We use the VOCA grant to fund that. The independent living coordinator's salary is funded through it, and actually part of the human services professional salary is funded through it. We also use it for like ILP outings, events, or really just anything that we need to pay for materials that are ILP related. So it's really great and wonderful. We are like super thankful to receive this grant. So thanks, Kathy, so much. That's all I got.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
So next we're gonna have Rita Johnson share with us. Give me 1 second here. Rita,
Yes.
how are you? Would you like to share with us now, please?
I sure would. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share about our program. I'm with Centers for Youth and Family. Centers for Youth and Family been in existence for over 120 years. And as you can tell, I have my a degree in psychology and health ed, my BA, my master's in rehabilitation counseling, and I'm also a substance abuse, certified substance abuse counselor. I have been at centers for the last 15 years in numerous numerous positions, but today we're talking about our prep program. I'm managing a couple other programs, but we're going to talk for sure about the prep program. Okay, Kathy, you want to go to the next screen?
Shirley.
Okay, now I said a little about Centers. Centers Youth and Family is a behavioral health organization. We have residential, we have outpatient, we have shelter. We work with an array of different kids, different ages. We have just going into a program now that we are going to be working with adults. So that's coming up in the future, which is really good for us. It shows our stability to keep going as the world is evolving. We're trying to make sure that we stay in the right path to evolve with the world. We have with centers having the behavioral health and with centers having all the other different programs. My program is prevention piece. We try to get the kids before they ever come into residential. So we, on the prevention piece, we have the sex ed with health education, and I also do a home visiting program as well as a parenting classes to help the individuals out before they have issues to have their little kids, adolescents come into our residential facility. Okay, Kathy, you can go to the next one.
All righty.
Okay, now, prevention service, I told you a little bit about prevention services. And with prevention services, this is what we look for up under the PrEP program. We educate young people to reduce pregnancy and things of that nature, HIV, AIDS, STDs. Our adolescents that we work with is our ages 11 to 14 years, 11 to 19 year age, and they are at risk individuals. And what I mean by at risk is when we're working in the school system, it's any school system that live in an area where they have a high free or reduced lunch population. The other children, the population that we work with is adjudicated youth. That's youth that's in the foster care system. I'm gonna say youth that's in detention centers. And then we have the foster care system. Population that's in the foster care. And we build on all these different implements that we have here. We have the Dibble Institute, we have Love Notes and Relationship Smarts, but we also do the life skills, which that's what we like about Dibble, is that they have the life skills incorporated into their curriculum. The other curriculums that we have used in the past, and we have been using PrEP for the last 7 years since it's been in existence, the program. And we have had other curriculums that we have used, but with Dibble, what we like about it is that the life skills is included in with the curriculum itself. So that makes our life a lot easier. We spend at least 15 hours. Our program is not like the kids stay there forever. We go in, we teach the class, we have 15 hours, and after we finish with that class, we'll finish with that group of young people. And then we move on to the next class. What we try to do is when we're working in the school system, we work with the coaches, anybody have health ed classes, we tell them, hey, let's work together. And so because you all have a core curriculum that you all have to do about health education, let us come in and let us teach that. And that's your respite care time where you can work on other things. Now the teacher is still there in the classroom, but we are conducting the class. So teachers still handling the behavioral problems, if any behavioral problems come around in the classroom, but my facilitators are still facilitating the class. And that's been working really, really good with us. We are in 11 different counties in the state of Arkansas, and we are serving over 3,000 participants a year. We work with, like with the school system, we work with the first semester we work with a group, and then the second semester we come back and we work with a different group. The same schools, just different groups of kids. With the foster care and adjudicated care kids, what's so great about that with the adjudicated care kids, they're mandatory for them to come to our class, so they have no choice. The other people, they do have a choice, and they really the participants, after they get involved in it a little bit, some of them don't want to, but then once they start talking, they start getting involved in the classroom really, really well. Foster care kids, we go to their agency. We usually do those during spring break, the summertime, winter break, and times like that when kids are out of school. So then we'll go start serving the other population that we work with. We work different times of the day and night because we work with the agencies and we work within the time frame that they have. Sometimes we have to work on weekends. Sometimes we have to work at night, especially with the detention centers and stuff. But when we talk about the school, we work with the school, that's a good time because we're working with them while they're still in school. So it's doing working time, working hours. Okay, Kathy, you can go to the next one.
Okay.
Okay, in our funding source, we are funded through FISB is the one who is the funder, and then from FISB we required this PrEP grant, and because a state agency had to apply for the grant, Arkansas Department of Health applied for the grant, and we received the state PrEP grant. So we are the subcontractors, where we're getting our funder is the Department of Health. Department of Health gets their money from FISB. So that's how we get our funding source for right now. I'm under PrEP. You can go to the next one. And the two curriculums that I told you that we work with are Love Notes and Relationship Smarts. Love Notes, we work with the ages of 14 to 19. In Relationship Smarts, we work with the ages 11 to 13-year-olds. And so that's going really well for us. Okay, Kathy?
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Rita. I appreciate it.
Okay, and let me, I think I need to say a little bit about one of the things what I like about the anecdotal story about the curriculum itself. The best part.
Yeah, if you'd like, or we can wait to do that with our discussion questions if you like.
Yeah, let's do a discussion questions then.
Okay, because we'll let Mina go next then. Thank you, Rita.
Okay, thank you.
Oh,
Mina,
thank you,
are you ready?
Yes,
Mina?
I'm here. Absolutely. So my name is Mina Koplin. Thanks, Kathy. I am the program manager for the Milestone Transitional Living Program. And so I work for Salt Lake County Division of Youth Services. And our program, we have a basic center. So we have young people coming in as young as age 8 to 17. We also have like our homeless entrance, that's for our minors. And then the program that I run works with young adults that are between the ages of 18 and 22, and that's the Transitional Living Program. So the Division of Youth Services serves all of Salt Lake County here in Salt Lake City, Utah. And we also have a section in which we are serving young people through Christmas Box House. So those are children that are in state's custody. That's a section of our program. We also have a group home here that serves 18 to 21-year-olds. And we have what we call a FAST program, and that works with our young ones between the ages of 8 and 18 that are staying out to keep them out of the hospital and focusing on the mental health pieces of that. So I have worked, a little bit about me, I have worked for the Division of Youth Services for 26 years. And I started out at about 18 volunteering, and then I've pretty much worked every position you could work in this agency, and then ultimately ended up as program manager advocating for our youth that are experiencing homelessness. And so a little bit about the Milestone program. We serve young people 18 to 21. We have houses and apartment style living. So we serve about 16 young adults at a time, and they can stay in our program for up to 18 months. And much like Emily was speaking about, we focus on life skills. We focus on teaching them how to budget and manage their money, and how to get, many of our young people that are coming in have aged out of foster care. And so in the state of Utah, what we know is about 30% of our young people that age out of foster care within 2 years are homeless or are in prison. And so we've recognized that we really want to focus in on that population, and also our young people that maybe should have been in foster care but weren't, you know. And so as they come into our program, some of our young adults are in high school, others we're working with them to get their GEDs, education, high school diplomas, and then also focusing on employment that would be self-sustaining or going on to college. And so I think that, and we use the curriculum Love Notes to focus on our relationships, because we know that these young people frequently struggle to build connections in the community. And so when I was able to speak with Dixie, one of the things that we implemented this year was the Love Notes 3.0 curriculum, and it's been pretty fantastic. I think you can go to the next slide.
Okay.
So this is about our program, and I think we can even go to the next one. So our funding is provided by Salt Lake County, provides about $217,000 per year. We have the RHY grant as well. We have a 3-year federal grant for $200,000 per year, and then Salt Lake County Housing Authority supplements the income for our houses. So we have 2 houses that are predominantly male, and we have one apartment that's predominantly female. We master lease those out in the community, and ultimately our housing authority pays for the rent. And then we have our young adults actually pay what we call program fees. And where that's beneficial is they pay in these program fees, we save them for them, and then when they leave the program, they're able to take those funds with them. So if they stay for approximately a year, they have about $3,000 saved up so they can work on that self-sufficiency piece. We can go to the next slide. So our program curriculum, where we're using the Dibble Institute, we run our groups 2 times per month. And the way that we've set this up, because our young adults' average length of stay in our program is between 10 months and a year, we realized that we could run 2 groups a month, and we double up those groups. So I run them on a Sunday and also on a Thursday, and that's to kind of work with our young adult schedules. And they are mandated to attend one of those groups. So it's either a Sunday or a Thursday, and we run the same group twice. So all of our young adults can attend that group. And it has been unbelievably effective in helping them to, I think, just gauge their own relationships and recognizing what they're coming into the program with. And then where the curriculum has really supported them is recognizing that they have so many more skills that they weren't even aware of, and they start to utilize those as we move forward. So that's a little bit about our program.
Okay, fantastic. So this is the part of the webinar that we're going to be doing just a little bit different. So we're hoping this is going to work. If I can have the 3 of you panelists, excuse me, put on your webcams. We are going to have a piece of the program now where the 3 of them have, we're going to have a discussion question that you all can see in your on your screen, as well as, why don't you raise your hand if the attendees can see all of our panelists. If you can raise your hand to kind of let me know you can see them, that would be great. Your raise your hand is in your control panel. If you see the little hand, if you can see our panelists in their webcam on your screen, can you raise your hand, please? Okay, we've got some folks who could, great. It should be, I'm hoping it's at the top of your screen. Very good. Everybody smile pretty. Okay, great. Okay, our first question that we have here is, and you can just take turns, speak as you would like, ladies. Describe what protective factors are being built in the youth you serve and share an example. Who would like to start out? Emily?
I am first.
Okay, go ahead.
So I would say there's probably about 4 main protective factors that are being built in the youth that we serve. The first one being coping skills. An example of that, the vulnerable youth that we serve, a lot of them have been through severe traumas that affects every single day of their lives. Very simple tasks, very simple conversations are difficult, they're frustrating. It's just something that's simple to a normal, not normal, but maybe someone who hasn't been through the trauma that they have. An easy task is extremely difficult and frustrating, and so we really focus on building coping skills and practicing coping skills. For example, we had one of our kids last night, she just had a meltdown about something as simple as shaving. So she was able to thankfully use her coping skills, go in her room, she likes to count things and listen to music, and that really helped her out. Second thing, well, I did one. I'll let the other 2 go.
I can speak to that. I would say community connection. So creating a space in the community and recognizing that our young adults are part of our community has been a huge key for us. And so, for example, tomorrow we're teaming up with one of our community partners. Coca-Cola is going to come out. They're working with our young adults, and we're actually going to be sprucing up one of the apartments out there, but also building move-out kits. So again, like having them work hand in hand, I think with community partners and letting them know that they are part of the community is critical. So that's one of our protective factors.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah.
Right, and one of our coping skills is that what we do is the academic piece of it, because we're in so many different schools. We want to make sure that the schools understand that we meet the child where they're at. We have trauma-informed care training, we have mental health first aid training, and we let the kids know that they're not out here by themselves, and that there are a lot of different adults that's here that to help them. And a lot of the kids have came back through the evaluations and said that the one thing that they liked about us when we came into their classroom is that they treated us, we treated them with respect, especially at the detention centers as well.
Right. That sounds great. You're just making them part of the community and not making them feel like they're out there all alone and different.
Correct.
That is great. Okay, the next question we have is, we say, or Dibble says that Dibble's relationship education is strength-based. Can you describe how you have seen this in practice? Can you name a strength of Dibble's relationship education materials and give an example or an anecdotal story?
Yeah, definitely. So I think the thing that I like the most about the Dibble Institute is that at the end of like each chapter, there is basically like a relationship building exercise between like a trusted adult and the youth. And that is extremely helpful for us. I think a lot of the time, especially at the shelter, I'm sure you guys can understand this as well, whenever you have youth come in, there is a certain level of trust that is there after a few days. They trust that you're going to keep them safe. They trust that they're going to get 3 meals a day. They trust that they're going to have clean clothes, that they're going to have a bed to sleep in, those kinds of things. I think what is difficult to build is a level of trust to have youth come to you when they are in need. A lot of the times they mess up. They mess up, or they have witnessed something that they're scared to talk about. Whatever the reason is, they don't want to tell you, when really the most beneficial thing for them to do is to tell you. That takes a certain level of trust to build between the trusted adult and the youth. And so the activities at the end of each unit or each chapter really help build that trust to where you can start feeling more comfortable knowing that if your youth mess up, if they get in trouble, if they saw something they shouldn't have, or if they just want to come to you about something they're scared of, they actually feel comfortable coming to you about it, and it can actually be resolved instead of creating more issues for them. So yeah.
That's great, Emily. Rita, do you have something?
I was going to say that we just had an experience this week that was just really great. Well, the experience wasn't great, but because my facilitator was educating them on healthy relationships. He had a life experience where his friend that was in college, relationship he had with his friends ended him up in his death, because he was with some of his friends that wasn't a healthy relationship, and because of that reason, he ended up being killed. And he was able to tie that into what they were going through in school, to let them know the association with making healthy friend relationships is just not what we're talking about through the curriculum. It's also life experiences that's going on day to day, and that you have to really take heed to it. So really like the piece of them able to tie in experiences that's going on in today's world, so the kids could understand that this book wasn't made so far back in the past. It's still related so much for today.
Right. So what they were getting, the information they were getting out of the relationship education, the material, he could actually apply outside of the classroom.
Yes.
I could see it unfolding. Oh, that's great. That's great. Mina, how about you?
Well, I love how it starts because you're doing the personality test, right? And all of our young people want to know more about themselves. Like, they like the idea that they're building insight into themselves. And I think that beginning section, where we're like, now you know about your own personality, strengths, and then they build on that, and you keep going back. As we're going through this curriculum, you're going back to, do we remember our strengths? Do we know other people's personalities? So I love that, because I think you're starting on that note that you have this greatness within yourself, and so do all of the other people around you, and how do we build from there? So I love that piece, and bringing that through, and just focusing on, there's no right or wrong, it's just healthy. What's healthy? What's that going to look like? So that's my.
Right, I agree with you, Mina. Then, how many times do we get youth to look inward at themselves, and how many times do they look at themselves and say, "Hey, this is really what I'm about, and this is really what I'm good at, and this is really who I am." So I like that piece as well. You all spoke of really great pieces out of the information. Okay, so here's another question here. What are some best practices for connecting or engaging youth in relationship education programs? So how have you engaged your youth in getting involved in some of the activities and some of the relationship programs you've used?
Yeah, I think for us, for the ILP program especially, you really have to gear the lessons into the individual needs of each kid. You really have to know your kids, first of all, and to get them to engage, it's going to have to be something that has to do with them. They're all so different, and they all have different interests, and they're all struggling with different things. So that's obviously a huge one. Second of all is having that trust to get them to actually engage. A lot of the times it is something they're interested in, but they're like, I don't trust you. I don't want to talk about this. I'm not doing it. So that's a big one as well. And then also kind of giving the youth the power to be able to decide how effective it's going to be for them, you know, kind of just giving them the lessons, giving them the skills, and letting them know, like, you're in control. Like, this is on you. If you want to accomplish it, that's great. This is in your power. Like, you are powerful, so go out and do it. Yeah, I'd say those are probably the three main things for us.
And I like the piece of it with the curriculum. It has so many different activities that have the kids to get engaged in the activities that they have, because just the little activities of them picking out how many different marbles they have that's green and red versus their friendship levels and stuff. So it makes the kids start talking more. It pulls them in, even the ones who don't want to talk. The activities pull them in to make them want to talk. Like Mina was saying with the personality test, it makes them start talking and engaged in one another. It makes them start understanding how each other work in different ways and how they building up on their strengths and weaknesses. And it works out. Those activities are a lot of fun for the kids.
Exactly. Well, and that's what I was thinking about too, Rita. It gives so many different ways too that people learn. If people aren't so art inclined, well, they may be music inclined. So it gives them different ways and methods of learning, as well as bringing the youth in different ways, for sure. Emily, how about you? Do you have something you'd like to say?
Oh, I already went. I think we're just waiting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I lost track.
So I would say there's a couple of things that I look at. I think some of this with working in the educational programs is recognizing that not all of our young people are ready at the same time. Like, you'll have some of them that'll come in and they're super excited, ready. So I think best practice is recognizing trauma history and recognize sometimes you just got to give them time and that unconditional positive regard and the consistency. Like in our program, they know every week, they know when group is, they know what that's going to look like. They know they're going to get fed. They know they're going to be excited. There's things there that they can just expect. And so from my perspective, I think that's the best practice, is that consistency of, like, consistency means safety. And the safer we can get them to feel, the better they're going to do academic, like from an educational standpoint and growing.
Right, for sure. Okay, now at least one of you spoke about this, and I love that you did. And at the end of we have different versions of love notes now, but at the end of every different version of love notes, at the end of every lesson, we have a trusted adult section where they are to discuss certain things or do certain things with a trusted adult. And I love that piece, as one of y'all has spoken about. If you all would like, I know one of you had already spoken about that, share how finding and working with this trusted adult has addressed the social and emotional needs your youth experience.
I think from my perspective, we had a sweet young lady last week, and we had them, they sign it and can bring it back. And we have them with the trusted adult, we give them gift cards, because then they want to bring it back. So one of our young adults had a teacher, so she graduated from high school this year. She's kept in contact with that teacher. That's her trusted adult. And so these are conversations, I think, especially in the relationship group, these are conversations that I want them having repeatedly, like not just one time with us, but out in the community. And so for her to be able to say, well, I sat down with my teacher, my trusted adult, and we had this great conversation, and she was able to share with us other pieces from that lesson that she hadn't thought of. And that was exciting, because I think that's the whole point. It's like you're seeing growth every time they have this conversation again. And they're also sharing with these individuals that are giving them different type of feedback than we as staff are, I think. So I love that piece. I think it's very helpful. And I think that they grow even more from it, and they're motivated by it. They want a reason to talk about relationships. They just don't know what that is.
Right.
I like it also when my facilitators go back into the school system, they see them on the street. They always say, I hadn't had a baby yet. I still remember I have goals, you know. You know. I have a baby, but I stopped at one, you know, I don't. So, you know, we meet them where they're at and we say, thank you. That's great that you remember what you've been taught. Yeah. And so that makes us feel really good, like we're making a difference.
Oh my goodness, yes. When we all love to hear that from our students, for sure.
Right.
For sure. Emily, did you have anything else you wanted to say? Because I think you were the one that talked a lot about the trust.
Yeah, no, I think I said all I needed to about that one.
Yes, yes. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So tell us about your biggest takeaway from using relationship education for your youth. Maybe tell us, you can tell us something, maybe a success story from some of you've told great success stories so far, but maybe tell a success story. Tell about how relationship education, you know, doing relationship education has affected other aspects of your youth lives, because we know it's just not about one little piece of their life.
And that's what our big takeaway is that it's just not talking about when we're in the classroom and we're talking, or wherever we're at in the community, we're talking about the relationship piece of it. They think it's only dealing with their individual relationship with a mate or a partner. But then they realize, the big takeaway is they realize relationship just goes bigger and broader than just your personal partner relationship. It's your mother and your father relationship, your teacher's relationship with you and your teacher, and things of that nature. So, and then a relationship with you and your boss. And so they understand that it's just not one area, it's the bigger universal picture. That's the biggest takeaway that we have.
Right. Emily, do you have something?
Yeah. I think it's just realizing, using the curriculum and working here for 2 years, I've realized the importance of having ththese conversations, of just opening up a dialogue with your kids, you know, and it's really shocking when you do have these conversations and you open up this dialogue, how much the kids need it, because they come from traumatic situations and not the greatest families, and it's easy to look past and just assume that they know simple things that they should know about relationships and about boundaries and about coping skills and knowing themselves, and you'd be surprised they know nothing, and the things that they do know they haven't gotten from reliable sources. So, you know, you're sitting here in sex education and you're going over the female male anatomy and you're like, their answers are insane. You're like, what? No, that's not right. Who'd you hear that from? Oh, my cousin or my uncle. And you're like, oh my goodness, no. So I think that's the biggest takeaway of just realizing how important it is just to bring up this stuff, open up the dialogue, and to have a conversation. Yeah.
Great. And Mina?
I feel like Rita and Emily have said it. What I look at is there's a part in this, in the Love 3.0, where you do the red and the green beads, right? Mm-hmm. And they talk about healthy versus unhealthy relationships. Mm-hmm. And you have more of these red beads, which are unhealthy relationships. And I think my greatest takeaway is when my young adults can actually say to me, this isn't a bad person, but it's not a healthy relationship for me. And they're now identifying that. And that's different than it was 6 months ago before we started this. So that's exciting to me. It shows me that it's working. They're able to now identify what relationships in their life they want to bring in. And then since we kind of pull that in constantly, they can also recognize like what their history brought with them. So that's a part of who they are, but it doesn't have to be everything that they are, and they can learn new skills and they can take that forward. And so for me, that's my greatest takeaway, is that if we can teach them, you know, like Emily was saying, like actual, you know, this knowledge, then they'll take it with them and they grow and develop and they bring more healthy people in. And that's exciting because we know that's for success.
Exactly. And you're building what we were talking about, you're building protective factors. That's what it's all about, for sure. Well, thank you for sharing. What I'd like to do now is I've got a question I've got two things we can do. One, I would like for you all to, the audience, to write any questions they may have for the panelists in the question box. Nancy told me to tell you all that she really liked the interactive panel. So again, thank you, panelists. You've done a great job. And I do have a couple questions from Gail here. So if the audience would take a little bit of time and write some questions in. I also have a question up here that the audience can write in their answer. If you have particular ways that you feel like your organization is being successful in building protective factors with your youth that you serve, if you can write them in the question box, that will also help us share them with the rest of the audience. Now, I want to clarify something. I think it was Mina. I want to just ask a question, and if it wasn't Mina, you can correct me. I think it was Mina that said, do you all serve 8-year-olds and up, or was it someone else?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was? Okay. So do you actually use love notes with the 8-year-olds, or is there other curriculum you use with 8-year-olds?
So the curriculum that we're using right now through Dibble is only in our transition to adult living program. So only with the 18 to 21-year-olds right now.
Okay. So you're using them with the young adults. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I just wanted to clarify that. And I thought that was probably correct, but I knew Dixie worked with you all more closely than I do. Great. Thank you for clarifying that. So this is a question that Lori has for you, Mina. Do you feel that Love Notes curriculum would be useful for individual clinical therapists with their clients?
Absolutely.
Can you answer?
Absolutely. Okay. I think that because what we so we have a therapist that works for us, and one of the things that she does is when she meets with our young adults, because they're all coming in at different times, right, into the curriculum.
Right.
And so she actually meets with them. They do the personality testing with her and then move it in. And again, I think you could do this with an individual therapist, and it just helps them grow. They'd have homework because they have a little workbook. So it's something that I think is, certainly as a therapist, I would utilize it. I think it works great as a group because you're getting a lot of feedback, but individually, I think it could be very effective.
Okay, great. Carla here has asked, do we have, because I know a lot of you are using Love Notes with the upper age, usually it's written for 15 to 24-year-olds. Sometimes people use it for middle schoolers, depending on their setting and whatnot. But Carla, we do have other curriculum that we do use with middle schoolers. The sister curriculum to Love Notes is actually Relationship Smarts Plus, but we also have other curricula that we do use for middle schoolers. We have Healthy Choices, Healthy Relationships is one of those connections and dating we have. So I will actually contact you as well and just give you the links to those. But we have digital review copies that I can share with you as well. So yes, we do have things for sure. Thank you for asking that. Okay.
And Kathy, sometimes what we do with my home visiting program, they have a group meeting. Sometimes we pull some of the information out of there because they're home visitors. The parents need to have learn how to pick healthy relationships.
Right.
So we talk to them. We use some of the curriculum to talk to them during their group education meeting.
Very to the parents.
Yes.
Oh, that's perfect.
Because even though they're older than 18, they still acting like they're 13. And so
There you go. And it is used a lot of times with workforce development or people, and also people coming out of not juveniles coming out of detention centers, but adults coming out of detention centers as well. And I also think the one-on-one, you could use the student journals a lot on a one-on-one basis. So there's a lot of ways you could do one-on-ones with people, for sure. Thanks for that suggestion. Okay, the question is, how do you identify a trusted adult? Is the person typically a caregiver? How would one of you like to answer that? I could answer, but I think one of you probably have some really good experience, because there are times that there is I think a very specific way to address that question.
So I would say how the shelter determines that. So we have a couple different trusted adults in our kids' lives. We encourage, we have volunteers, obviously. Most of our volunteers are from local church groups. They come and they cook for us, or they bring meals, or they just come to hang out with the kids. We have one couple that's amazing. They're like the grandparents of the entire shelter. They throw pool parties for the kids. They're extremely involved in the kids' lives with Christmas, concerts, events, holidays, just stuff like that. So I would say the volunteers, how we choose them, it's a small community, and it's really based upon who you know and word of mouth, and who you think that person is. That's how we choose our volunteers that way. They are also fingerprinted and have a background check run on them before we let anyone in the shelter and be around our kids, just to double check. Also, all of our staff are wonderful. We have a really large group of staff. And the same thing, I mean, we've had brothers and sisters working here. We've had cousins of family members working here. It's just it's a small, close-knit community. And so, and the staff as well, they go through fingerprinting and background checks. And then also we have tutors as well. That again, just through the community, through word of mouth, through just wonderful people that we already know and trust. They come in and they want to teach the kids or help tutor and stuff like that. And again, the fingerprint and the background check. So that's really ultimately, it's pretty simple. That's how we choose our trusted adults in our kids' lives.
Okay, great. And I think sometimes it's suggested that you as the facilitators probably are not the best ones to be the trusted adults, because as a facilitator, you kind of need a little bit of a boundary there, and it would kind of be hard for you to be a trusted adult for, all the young people. So I think that also is something that we have, when I have gone through the training, that they also suggest that as facilitators, maybe not to put yourselves in that situation of being the trusted adult. So, so also, let me ask, let's see who it was. I think it's Emily. Is it your group your program that uses Mind Matters?
Mm-hmm. Yep, we do.
Okay, so I'm not sure how familiar you are with the program. Have you been through that training? Or are you familiar with that program?
I'm pretty familiar about it. How we use it.
Well, first, Emily, can you first tell us, it is a trauma-informed program. Can you just tell us a little bit about it first, and then tell how you use it?
Yeah, so I mean, basically, in the simplest form, I would just describe it as coping skills. It allows your kids to get to know themselves, to get to know their traumas they've been through, to get to know what works for them, what doesn't work for them, what maybe ticks them off, what maybe puts them in a mood, and then how to come back from that mood. Yeah, that's pretty much how I describe it.
Yeah, and I like this someone has asked about trauma-informed programs. That's why I mentioned it. And I like it because it actually talks about, it doesn't talk specifically about the trauma, but what it does is guide the young people, and anyone actually, guide you through the whatever you're experiencing about the trauma without addressing the trauma exactly. So I think it gives really good coping skills, not just the breathing exercises, but other things that you can teach. Paraprofessionals can teach it to students, to young people, And that's one reason I like it. And the thing I like to do is, I'm going to even go ahead here. Here's our emails and whatnot. But I would like to tell you that our next webinar is going to be about Mind Matters. We have the Mind Matters that focuses on a large group setting, but we have also actually Carolyn Curtis, who is the developer and the author of Mind Matters, has come out with a one-on-one approach, which I think someone asked about love notes. And this is a new approach for teaching Mind Matters in individual settings. So definitely look for this webinar and the registration for this webinar as we're about to end here. Now, I know there's lots of comments and lots of questions. I will definitely get back to them. If there are things that need to be directed to our panelists have also agreed to answer them for us, and I appreciate that. Again, thank you. Email us. Email me. I'm Kathy with a C at dibbleinstitute.org. I am at the 1-800 number most of the time, and I'll be glad to answer any questions for you. Again, wave goodbye, panelists. They can see you. Thank you, and y'all have a great evening.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.